This is the October 13th, 2019 full moon horoscope. It is set for the time the full moon is exact over Washington, D.C., the United States. And I've done that because I live here. All right, so we're going to do things a little bit different for this video, as always, experimenting and trying new things. And I'm doing this video on the full moon because it's really getting to me, mostly because I'm personally taking this full moon, this T-eclipse, oh my God, this T-square that's activating the eclipse in my personal chart as well. So I am struggling with some horrible insomnia, which is not helping things any. But also, too, because if you live in the United States, you are aware just how, oh, girl, messy things have gotten out here. And for those of you who are living elsewhere on the globe, I'm sure it's not any better. Hong Kong is just in constant eruptions at this point. And Great Britain,
There is a message for you.
I don't even know what y'all are doing. I swear to God, I don't even know what y'all are doing. So it's not easy. Now, this particular full moon is very important because it involves the Pluto activating the last of the eclipse from this summer. So it's going to look like this. Let me pull this up for you. So, and I want to start this. I want you guys to understand I'm not trying to alarm anybody, but, you know, better forewarned forum, better safe than sorry, right? So here's your full moon. We have the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. Now, this particular full moon is difficult by itself, even without other complications, because the sun in Libra, while it's okay being there, it's not in love with that particular position. It's like wearing a dress or an outfit that you're not in love with. It looks okay, but it's not you. And then you have the moon in Aries. The moon is a feminine planet. Aries is a masculine sign. The moon is passive and receptive and nurturing. Mars is domineering and selfish and driven. So the moon placed in Aries is difficult because the moon has to express itself in ways that are antithetical to its actual nature. Now, this in opposition to the sun, which is now in the opposite sign Libra, only puts further emphasis on that struggle to express yourself, unfortunately, in ways that are not natural to you. So full moons in Aries, in natal charts, it's kind of like this. So if you have a full moon in Aries, sun in Libra, moon in Aries in a natal chart, you typically, not always, but typically you have people who think that the best way to achieve peace is by starting a war. And then they don't understand why everybody's mad. They mean well. It's just a really clumsy position for it to be. So with that said, we've already got a lineup here that's challenging. Now, the sun and moon in this particular instance are in the middle decan of the cardinal signs. So the middle decans, if you were with me on my Patreon page, you would remember this, right? So each sign is 30 degrees. And the middle decan, and it's all broken up into thirds, and it's broken down even more, but that's a whole separate thing, because there's decanates and dwadamshas. So, but for what we're talking about the decanates or the decans, right? So it's the third. Each 10 degrees is a third of the sign. So here we have the full moon right there at the end of the second decan. When you have things that are in the second decan of their signs, and right there in the middle ground, it takes on a very stubborn quality, very stubborn, very fixed. It doesn't want to move. So now we've got a full moon that's very high drama, very clumsy in terms of getting its needs met and cooperating with people. Like it wants to cooperate by dominating the entire playing field. And as a rule, because Libra is a masculine sign and so is Aries, and are both cardinal signs, is also very pushy about things. And all of this is in the middle decan, which makes it very committed to its position. So not having the best self-awareness in situations is a real challenge at this time. Now, and this is before we get to the Pluto. Now, we have Pluto and Capricorn. So this, before we even get into the eclipse stuff, we're just going to look at the T-square. So with Pluto and Capricorn, setting up a T-square. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means that Pluto, or the planet rather, is exactly 90 degrees from two other planets at the same time. These two planets are what's called 180 degrees. They're in exact opposition to each other, 180 degrees away from each other, facing off like two boxers entering a ring, or two mixed martial artists coming together in what is it, those cages, those death match cages. So 180 degrees, you got two forces literally coming from opposite sides to confront each other, right? And to bring things to completion or ahead, or to turn this into something that they couldn't accomplish alone. For instance, dancing. Because when you're dancing, well, let me rephrase that. When you do old-fashioned partner dances, you had to be facing your partner. You had to act as complements, or two sides of the same coin, in order to make this dance exist, right? So that's what you get with your oppositions. But here we have a planet that's in a square aspect to both ends of that seesaw, right? So you've got Pluto in 90-degree aspect to the moon, and simultaneously also in 90-degree aspect to the sun on the other side. So in practice, what this looks a lot like, think of a seesaw, right? I don't know what you guys would call it if it's a different name in another country, but a seesaw, right, is a board. So you've got this long board, and then you've got this fulcrum in the middle. So as soon as you put a person on one end, the seesaw wants to go up. But when you put another person on the other end, depending on how heavy or not heavy they are, the seesaw goes up and down, right? So with this third piece right here, this fulcrum, what that does is it allows movement, dynamic movement to occur. Something dynamic action can take place now. Because if this didn't exist, right, what you would have is just a board sitting on the ground. There would be nothing would happen. Nothing would happen because there's nothing to change the dynamics of the situation. So this T-square, we've got the moon, we have the sun, and now we've got Pluto getting right in the middle to act as a fulcrum. So what that Pluto is doing is it's now creating dynamic motion. Something has to happen. And more importantly, now something can happen. So it's not all bad. It's not all easy for sure. But it is not all bad. So this is our T-square right here. This is what we're looking at. So the other thing, and also to Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn is also a masculine sign. So right off the top, we have Aries, Libra, and Capricorn. These are all masculine signs. Libra, we often think of as feminine because it's ruled by Venus, but the reality is that Libra is a cardinal sign. Oh, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Capricorn is a feminine sign. Forgive me. It's two masculine signs, two feminine signs. So Aries and Libra, that's a horrible Libra. Aries and Libra are masculine, and Cancer and Capricorn are feminine. These two trip everybody up, right? I just did it right here. Those two signs trip everybody up because we often think of this one as feminine and this one is masculine. And the reality is it's the exact opposite. So for those of you who are new to astrology and you're going, wait, what? I don't understand. Here's what's very important to understand about masculine and feminine. When we talk about masculine and feminine presentations in astrology, we're not talking about male versus female. This has nothing to do with that. Masculine versus feminine has everything to do with outgoing versus introverted, right? Extroverted versus introverted. Outgoing and pushing out into the world, and I'm not sure I don't know what the word for ingoing is. Pulling away from the world and being more inwardly turned, right? So Libra, by its nature, is a masculine sign because it very much pushes out into the world. Whereas Capricorn is a night sign. It rules the night, and Capricorn is very much about reflection and pulling in and not engaging with as few people as possible. One of the things you'll notice with your Libra Capricorn friends, and here's a better way to describe masculine and feminine. So Libra is a masculine sign because it pushes out into the world, which also means that you want to engage with as many people as possible. So one of the things you'll find with your Libra fans is they really like getting out there and meeting people and kind of shaking hands and kissing babies. They are the politician. Capricorn, we often think of as the statesman or the manager, the executive, right? But one of the things you're going to notice about your Capricorn friends is that they're not interested in meeting new people all the time or engaging with lots and lots of people all the time. They're very specific about who they limit their interactions with. Okay, so that's not just a function of being a Capricorn. That's also a function of being a feminine sign. All of your feminine signs resist or pull back from dealing with lots of people on a frequent or irregular basis if they can avoid it. They'd much rather keep their own company, and they'd much rather limit the number of people they deal with. All of your masculine signs push out into the world, and they love being around people and being involved with people. So you'll see that. Okay, so another way to look at this, because remember, masculine and feminine is not limited signs. It's also it's also assigned to specific traits and characteristics. So fire signs, for example, it's a masculine element. So fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, are in a fire or masculine element, which means that those three signs like to be out in the world and be around people. People stimulate them. They like that. Water signs are feminine signs. Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer. Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer as feminine signs means that they don't like being out in the world. They don't like dealing with a lot of people unnecessarily, and will actively avoid it when they can. They will actively find ways to avoid dealing with as many people as possible. So masculine and feminine is not about man versus woman. Masculine and feminine is very much about the quality of the energy, right? Whether it's outgoing into the world or ingoing or introverted, pulling in and away from the world, right? So there's something to think about. In this particular case, we have two masculine signs, Libra and Aries, right? And because they're the full moon, this is a masculine full moon, very very fixed, domineering type of full moon. And now the fulcrum that makes things move, that is helping situations to come to their tipping point, tipping like a seesaw, tip, is Pluto, which is a feminine planet in the sign of Capricorn, which is a feminine sign. So one of the things that I'm thinking, but we'll see how this plays out for people, right? One of the things that I'm thinking is that the thing that is going to be instrumental or key in these situations that finally get leveraged or open or crowbarred open, if you know what a crowbar is, crowbar that you use to break open doors, is going to be catalyzed or ignited or pushed into action, exacerbated by feminine forces. So it could either be a woman or women, or it could be, what would be feminine? It could be somebody or something or some agency that tends to shy away from engaging with the masses. So I wouldn't look for, so like at your job, I wouldn't look for the human resources department because they're a very masculine department. It's very much about dealing with people all the time. Payroll, on the other hand, would be a feminine department. So it's something like that. So there's a feminine principle or a feminine quality, not male, female, but feminine, introverted versus extroverted type of expression. It's instrumental in making these things blow wide open. Now, one of the things that we also know is that Pluto rules secrets and things that were hidden from view, things that are not meant for everyone to see. And we here in the U.S., unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of that. Now, Pluto, as it's been in Capricorn, thank God we're in the second decan, and we're eventually going to come out of this. But Pluto, moving through Capricorn, has very much been about the establishment, right? Because Pluto rules masses of people, and it rules major power plays, and it rules mega money. So whenever Pluto's mixed up in something, it expands, enlarges, and increases. I mean, you think Jupiter does it, but Pluto is much bigger than that. And Pluto comes with a much higher price tag for it. So it's not all, sunshine and roses here. Pluto in Capricorn has very much been about the establishment, or because Pluto is very much counterculture and very much about challenging authorities. Pluto is also very much about anti-establishment and a complete revision and annihilation and resurrection from the rubble to existing authoritarian or authority-based organizations and structures in our society as well as our personal lives. We're seeing this in Hong Kong. Hong Kong and is being given back to China because the British lost their lease on the island. So you might want to look that up. I'm not going to get into it here, but it's interesting history. But so Great Britain apparently had a lease on Hong Kong for 1,000 years or something, and the lease ran out. So Hong Kong gets reverted back to its parent, or the mainland, which is China. And Hong Kong has lost its ever-loving mind because they don't want to go back to, it's literally like trying to move back in with your parents, right? Like you're way too grown for that now. So they're being thrust back under China rule, which they don't want, because even though they're still a child of China, like the nation is still a product of China, they're their own independent entity. Just like you are, once you leave your parents' house and you've been on your own a while, you are your own independent entity, even though you're still a part of your parents. So in this particular instance, it has been grueling because China represents authority. And what is the big fight with Hong Kong and China? Right now, it has everything to do with how much authority does China have over Hong Kong now that Hong Kong is being delivered back to them. Because as far as Hong Kong is concerned, we may have originated from you, but we are not part of you anymore. We are not, you can't ask us to live by the rules you set because we don't live there in your house anymore. We are our own separate house. So this is Pluto in Capricorn, right? Challenging the existing authority structure, challenging the things that are not working for us, and really standing up for and saying enough is enough. Enough is enough. I've had all I can take, and I'm not taking anymore. With this full moon, we should see some huge, dramatic developments in a lot of places, globally as well as personally. Now, the thing to understand about full moons is that we're going to feel it up to the full moon and a couple days after the full moon. So it's never exact, right? So it's kind of like, it's like time, right? So it's 9 o'clock here, but over in the central part of this particular country, it's at least an hour behind. So if it's 10 o'clock here, it's 9 o'clock there. And if you get to the even further out to the other side of the country, it's 8 o'clock there. It's like 3 hours even further behind. So we're all technically like in this moment together, right? But where we are as far as the exact time, what the clock says, where it falls at any given moment, is not the same thing. So if I call you right now, ring, ring, right? You and I are literally having the same moment. We are sharing a moment as we're speaking to each other. But on the clocks, it's going to show very different times. So it's the same thing when we look at these activations by transits, especially around full moons and eclipses. So the time that we're showing here is 5 p.m. on October 13th. But the fact of the matter is, this is where the moment is occurring, but the actual time on the clock, meaning when something happens, may actually be a couple days before or a couple days after. So effectively, we're under it right now. Okay, so we've got a whole week of full moon follies to deal with. Now, if you are carrying planets anywhere near 20 degrees of the cardinal signs, right, you are going to be feeling this the most. So with T-squares, and in this particular T-square, because there was an eclipse involved and some other things happening, there may be circumstances and events that are occurring that are well beyond your control. So external circumstances may be conspiring to bring you situations that you couldn't have possibly planned or prepared for. So with that said, be very gentle with yourself and listen to your inner promptings, because that thing that the universe is delivering to you may be good, maybe bad. We don't know. We don't know, because Pluto not only rules, the underworld and anti-establishment counterculture and the black market and all sorts of things that are hidden from view. Pluto also rules mega billionaires. Pluto also rules mass upheaval and mass reform. Pluto also rules nuclear power and modern surgery. Right? So one extreme or the other. So we don't know what Pluto might be bringing you. All we know is that Pluto's going to bring something. So you may be asking yourself, well, if this is new for you, you may be saying, well, I don't know if I've got planets at those degrees. Like, which size are you talking about? So here's what we're going to do. Let me show you. So if you have planets at the 20th degree in any of the following signs, you can check your chart, right? Aries, Libra, Capricorn. Let's see my Cancer on here. Here we go. Let me do it this way. If you have planets at 20 degrees in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, right? Anything near this 20 degrees. So you're looking at, I would say, I personally like tight orbs. You guys might want to use bigger orbs. I'm not a fan of sloppiness with the degrees. So if you have planets between 18 and 22, give or take, right? I might even go as far out as 1723 degrees. In these signs, you're going to be feeling this T-square. So circumstances and life and fate, and I say fate because this is activating the eclipse from this summer, will bring you some unexpected things. Now, it is entirely possible that you could go through this and it's nothing happens. Nothing extraordinary happens. It's business as usual. You had, maybe a minor inconvenience. You got an unexpected flat tire, right? You ran into somebody you haven't seen in 100 years. You found something you thought you had lost. Like, literally, this transit could go by and be mostly nothing, just a whole lot of hype and a whole lot of nothing to go with it. If that is the case, I would give it a few days. Remember, this full moon, we're like the time, right? We're sharing a moment right now, but the times on the clock from where I am and you are may be very different times. So the events that this T-square is promising may take a couple of days to show up, or it may show up a couple of days early. So the few days leading up to the full moon and the few days after, give yourself like a week around this full moon, starting now, maybe when this thing shows up. Do not look for it to fall exactly on the 13th. It might, but don't hold it to that minute in time. Okay? So there's that thing. Now I know this all sounds completely alarming. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm a little nervous too. I personally don't like things being out of my control. I don't know very many people that do, unless it's a roller coaster. But even then you're strapped in pretty secure. Like, you're not going to get hurt, right? So there's some level of expectation and knowing what's going to happen when you get to the end of the ride, when you get on a roller coaster, even though you have no control over the roller coaster. Transits like this, we don't even know where this is going to leave us when it gets to the end. Like, we have no idea where the ride is going to dump us out by the time we get to the end of it. So it's a little scary, Now, this is not bad, however, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. So I want you guys to look at this with me, right? So let me pull up it. We'll use pink. So this full moon, remember, we've got this full moon with the T-square, right? This full moon is also, and this is really important, making a beautiful, exact trine to Jupiter. So literally, this Moon-Jupiter combination, especially in fire signs, is promising us miracles in the 11th hour. There are angels among us that will literally protect us from the worst of things. So whatever happens at this time, even if it means loss and sacrifice, there is a much bigger, more important picture involved here, and you have been spared a much worse situation, even though it doesn't look like it. So you have to have faith that there really is a much, much bigger picture involved where this full moon is concerned. And the other thing, and reason I'm going to say that, is because along with this Moon-Jupiter trine, which is literally, if I had to give it a description, I would call it a saving grace, right? This Moon-Jupiter trine is a saving grace. The other thing, I want you to look at this for a second, right? Look. Neptune is in Pisces. Now, Neptune just gets a bad rap no matter who's doing it. I'm so tired of people maligning poor Neptune. Okay, so Neptune is in Pisces. Neptune is in its rulership in Pisces. Neptune in Pisces is not bad. Listen, I'll tell you something. This Neptune in Pisces is the reason we have all worked so hard and come into very real direct contact with our humanity and sense of compassion in the face of unutterable sadistic cruelty, and callousness. It is unfortunate that it took this for us to get here, but the fact of the matter is we didn't have to end up here. There are a lot of people, and we watch this, that are perfectly capable and comfortable of being that kind of unholy, vile human being that literally has absolute disregard for other people, and children and mothers. Oh, dear God. So the fact that we are able to, there's many of us who are able to get in touch with that part of ourselves and really start to understand the necessity of our own divinity and what things like the importance and value that things like compassion really do have, and all of the Christ teachings that has been coming up over and over and over again as being absent by the very people who profess to be Christians, right? This is all Neptune and Pisces. And surprise, do you know what Neptune and Pisces also rules? Jesus Christ. So Neptune is in Pisces, right? Now over the Washington, D.C. chart, it is rising on the chart. There are people who would say that, oh, this is a bad thing. I don't think so. We'll get to that in a second. But look at this. Mercury is trining Neptune, right? Now, Mercury trining Neptune is very good because Mercury trining Neptune allows us to access communications that are not that are difficult with words. It also reveals secrets. So remember, this whole Pluto T-square right now is all about cracking open the walnut. Like there's stuff that's been like locked down in our lives, situations, circumstances, information, for a long time now. And the universe and all of our guardian angels are coming along with a crowbar, and they're going to crack that walnut open for us. Yeah. Like a big old fortune cookie, maybe. So with that said, now we're adding this Mercury-Neptune combination with it in the water signs, in the deep mystery signs, Scorpio and Pisces, right? So Mercury and Neptune is also very, very much about revealing communications that are more intuitive and also less obvious, right? Because there's nothing obvious about Neptune. If you look at the signs that they're in, Pisces and Scorpio, both of these are hidden signs. So Mercury in Scorpio is all about secrets and things that are kept away from public view, right? Because Scorpio is a very private energy. Pisces is even more private. The difference is with Pisces is the sign of the chimera. Pisces will give you any illusion or impression you want. Pisces is the sign of the octopus. So if you're the least bit familiar with octopus at all, octopi, one of the things you'll know is not only are they amazing escape artists, but they're also the world's most, nature's most impressive impersonator. They will literally disguise themselves to whatever is nearby and make themselves invisible. So just like an octopus, Neptune in Pisces has the ability to disguise itself into whatever is around it and give you the appearance of whatever you need to see so that they can hide themselves in plain view. And this is what we're getting with this Mercury, Scorpio, Neptune, Pisces thing. So there are things that will be revealed to us that have been hidden from public view for a very long time. That information may come through non-verbally in your sleeps, in your sleep, in your intuition, in your channeling, your meditation, your art, your writing. Like it's going to come, or it could come by way of third-party intervention, divine intervention, where you accidentally get information people had not intended you to have. It just accidentally slipped up and got there. Ooh, bad timing for them, good timing for you. It could come to you through other people deliberately making it a point to get you information or things that you need that you would have never in a million years gotten otherwise any other way. In any event, whatever this is, and remember that Moon Jupiter right here is about saving graces, right? So this is going to reveal secrets that were held back from us. Okay, and that Moon Jupiter is going to give us a saving grace with it. So this is a very important time to maybe shut up and listen, and just listen. And don't react. Just shut up and listen, right? So be an empty vessel. Okay, so that's what we've, and the other thing I want to point out that was interesting. Remember, masculine, feminine, Pisces and Scorpio are both feminine signs. So, again, this idea of being receptive and non-domineering and more about relationships and softer approaches to life, cooperation and consideration, feelings rather than intellect. These are the things that are coming up prominently at this time as well. Now, because feelings more than intellect will rule the day around the days of the full moon. This means, when you're dealing with people's feelings, you're not dealing with rational people. So understand that we really want to temper our communications so that we don't inflame people and give them a reason to go off, because of their feelings or because their feelings got hurt. But the other is that if you pay attention to what it is they are going wacko about. That will tell you a lot, give you clues about where the real problem or the real truth is. Pro tip. All right, now some other things that are happening under this full moon is this. And again, these are more saving graces. So Venus and Mars are in mutual reception. Now, Venus does not like being in Scorpio. Mars does not like being in Libra. For both of these planets in these signs, it is the worst possible position for them to be. So Venus and Scorpio, I know, like everybody likes to say, ooh, Venus and Scorpio is so sexy. But the fact of the matter is, Venus is a very simple planet. It rules Taurus and it rules Libra. It likes pretty things. It likes peaceful things. It likes hanging out and, everybody getting along and life being beautiful and easy. And, oh, would you like to share some of my wine? Here, have some cheesecake. That's Venus. Venus is all about life being beautiful and pleasant. Scorpio is not. Scorpio is about shit. Sewers, getting into people's garbage, psychologically and otherwise. Pluto is very much about pushing people and seeing how far it can go with that and being invasive and boundary crossing. Oh my God, Scorpio is a lot of damn work. So the thing about it is, remember, Scorpio is the investigator. It is the psychotherapist. It is the surgeon. It is the special ops military person, right? Scorpio is the person who gets in and gets all the dirty work done for everybody else. And they're okay with that. Just let them have their privacy and leave them alone. Because again, feminine sign, they want to reduce and eliminate the number of people they have to deal with, right? On any given occasion. So if they can get jobs that allow them to work quietly behind the scenes where they're dealing with as few people as possible, they're good with it. And if that means being elbow deep in somebody's toilet, that's okay too. And naturally, Venus does not like that. This is not Venus's domain. Ugh. Mars is the warrior. Mars is all about kicking ass and taking names, right? Or not taking names, as the case may be, because they're usually in a hurry. Mars is very much about in-your-face, simple presentation, like this is it, right? Like just whatever, let's go. Mars would prefer to work by itself and lead the pack than have to be tethered or tied to somebody else and have to figure out how to, like those potato sack races, right? Figure out how to get to its goal as quickly as it would like to while it's tied to somebody else. Like, oh my God. Libra is the sign of partnership. So here we have Mars, the warrior planet, go do it, yeah, who's now tied to someone else. And everything Mars does, it has to do with the cooperation and coordination and involvement of other people. This is not what Mars likes to do. Needless to say, Mars hates being in Libra. Because now it has to slow down, shut up, be nice, and cooperate with people rather than just going and getting the job done itself. You can imagine how much Mars does not like being there. So here we have Venus in a sign it does not like to be in, Mars in a sign it does not like to be in, because neither one of these planets are in signs that are comfortable for them. The signs that they are wearing, right, is the antithesis of everything they're about. So it's mightily uncomfortable for them. Here is the really, really cool part. These two planets are in what they call mutual reception. Okay, so this means that if we take Venus and we move her to Mars's sign, Libra, look at that. Venus is in its rulership. If we switch places, right, Mars, we would move to Scorpio. And Mars loves being in Scorpio. So in this way, these two signs have the ability to help each other. Because what Venus doesn't understand about being in Scorpio, Mars does. So Mars can tell Venus how to navigate that territory because Mars knows Scorpio, right? Because it's a sub-ruler. It's other traditional ruler. Mars does not like being in Libra. No siree Bob. Oh my God. Like Mars has no idea read, the unspoken words. Like, how some people have that way of just like kind of insinuating things. You're supposed to pick up what they're laying down without them ever come out and saying it. This is not a Mars function. Mars doesn't do subtle or hints. Like, you just got to tell them, please, for the love of God, just tell me. I don't have time for this. So naturally in Libra, which is all the sign of subtlety and hints and social graces, Mars is completely lost and confused a lot. But Venus knows all about how to interpret those suggestions and, very coded language and very polite, delicate, diplomatic approaches to letting you know that you're being a giant ass. Okay, so in this way, Venus is able to explain to Mars and help Mars by basically interpreting and explaining what's going on when the problem arises. So if you could, if you guys are familiar with the movie, I think it's Parent Trap. There's usually a couple of different movies that are out where you've got the two twins, right? You've got two people who are twins that trade places. Right? And always when they trade places or trade lives, their lives are so completely different. So once they trade places, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, oh, I don't know what this is. And it's in that way that the person they traded positions with is able to at least give them some guidance and advice on how to navigate that, right? So that they don't make a complete mess of things. And this is what happens when we have planets in mutual reception. So they're very weak and unable to act on their own, but they are able to offer assistance to the other planet. So there is some redemption and ability to save a situation here. So we like that a lot. The reason this is also highlighted and important is because when we look at this, it's black. The moon is what they call disposited. The ruler of the moon, or the ruler of Aries, is Mars, right? The sun is in Libra. So it is disposited, or the ruler of that sign is Venus. So in this respect, especially with a highly activated T-square, the Mars and the Venus in the chart become even more emphasized. So this becomes even more important around this full moon. This relationship and all that it symbolizes, with Venus and Mars being a mutual reception, and most important, offering the opportunity to save a situation, right? Literally by them acting on each other's, well, not on each other's behalf, but certainly supporting each other and allowing some opportunity to save themselves from worse disrepair, because they can communicate the things that the other one doesn't really understand. This is what we're getting with this Venus-Mars mutual reception, dispositing the full moon. Blah, 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 blah. So that, in conjunction with our saving grace, in conjunction with more divine intervention, right? And relaying or interference, cosmic interference to protect us. All of these things indicate that we've got some really positive things happening around this full moon. Again, T-square, Pluto, eclipse activation, it's not going to be clean and simple and neat and fun. Woo! Unless you're a masochist. But it will be important. And no matter how bad things get, no matter how just, oh my God, really? Like what next? And by the way, do not ever say what next. Never say what next, because the universe will always show you what next. So no matter how things get, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. There are huge, huge, huge beneficial, positive, life-affirming things that are happening underneath the surface. So as we go through this full moon, imagine, the picture I want you to imagine is the surface of the road, right, or the soil being broken, right, and breaking apart, and just all this rumbling and things falling apart and buildings collapsing, right? I mean, it's pretty horrifying, but What's also happening is when we're breaking up that hard topsoil that has been in place for so long that we're accustomed to and expect it to just be smooth and flat and hard like the desert all the time, right? It's just unchanging and that's just what it is. And we can count on it to be like that. When you break up that hard topsoil, it looks messy and it looks chaotic and it looks bad, right? But when you do that, what you're also doing is you're getting oxygen underneath the soil because you're literally making space for it to breathe. And also you're creating opportunities for more nourishing water to get in there so that things can grow better. And you're getting all the nutrients and micronutrients that have been buried underneath that hard layer you couldn't get to before, bringing it up to the surface. And once we get all of that chaos under control and the dust settles, then what we actually have is this fertile field of new raw material to work with that's even better than this thing that was choking out life because it wasn't changing all this time. So that's what we're looking at with this full moon. This is a very exciting time, but we have to participate in it and we have to be conscious of it and we have to work towards making it work for us. And for some of us, that may mean doing deep internal work, and you know who you are, right? For other people, it may mean making hard decisions that we've been avoiding forever because no, I don't want my life to change that much. Might not have a choice. And for other people, it may be literally taking the chance, taking a risk on yourself and taking a risk on believing yourself and going for the brass ring, but not as an impulse, going after it as a real, deep, serious, meaningful commitment, meaning that no matter what, you're going to keep doing this and it's going to get done, right? So over the next week, recommended reading for you guys. I would absolutely recommend you guys, if you have a chance, to go find the life story for Sylvester Stallone, because he is a classic story describing what we're talking about right now, right? As far as making deep, committed choices, against all odds, right? Another one is David Goggins, who's a very well-known ultramarathoner, and also he is one of the only men in history that has been both a Navy SEALs op and an Army Ranger. He's amazing. He has a book out called You Can't Hurt Me. Very, very good. And also for those of you who are not afraid of losing sleep and really want some clarity, I would highly recommend Rachel Maddow's book that just came out talking about the current events and where we are across the globe as far as fuel and oil and Russia and our elections and all this sort of stuff. And I say that because Pluto rules oil and oil money and fossil fuels. So this is also something we should be seeing coming up as like a big focal point under this full moon, because it's about big money and deep digging and not dwelling, well digging, right? And that's Pluto. That is absolutely Pluto's terrain. And that is also how they get big oil done. So there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. Now, for those of you who are in your relationships, and those of you who aren't, people, as typical with full moons, people are just going to be a little more sensitive than usual. So try not to poke the bears. Just saying. A little more love and a lot more kindness. Now, this full moon does have the potential to be very social and very fun. So absolutely, if you have an opportunity to go out and socialize and you're feeling it, go. Do your thing. Do your thing. Just remember, don't react. Just listen. The only thing that I would say is when you're out and about, please be mindful and aware of everything going on around you, because there are forces at play that are actively trying to hurt people. Or even if it's not conscious, there are certainly forces at play that are not rational right now, more so than ever. So there you go. So that is my examination of the full moon on the 13th. Y'all be careful. It should be important. It should be very important. Oh, right. That was the other thing. The last thing I wanted to put in here is we have Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, midheaven. Boy, isn't that a mouthful, right? All clustering together. We have a number of planets all clustering together at the time of the full moon. And what this means, in my understanding, and this is just the way I interpret it, so take it for what it's worth. Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and the midheaven has everything to do with ethics and integrity, rules and regulations, social policy versus individual concerns, and long-term ramifications for things, and more than a little investigation, underhanded or above board, not really making a difference which one it is, but just a whole lot of poking around in the bushes and rooting through people's garbage cans looking for dirt and information on them. And absolutely, especially when it comes to leadership. So in your lives, be aware that you may be under more scrutiny than people are telling you. This also means that surveillance may be higher, hotter, and heavier than you think it is. These are not happy-go-lucky observations people are doing. This is people absolutely digging and looking for things to use against you, or things that can be used against you. So be very mindful of your communications. Be very mindful of your paperwork when you throw it away. So if you're in the habit of throwing away credit card statements or bank statements, make sure you shred them. Also be very mindful of checking your credit scores and keeping an eye on your credit cards and your bank for possible fraudulent activity. Make sure you know where your cards are. Okay. Where drinks are concerned, don't leave your drinks sitting around. Absolutely don't accept drinks that are open when you receive them, unless you physically watched me make the drink and watched it traveling to you. This theme is going to repeat itself at the end of the month. So this is a really good practice time because everything's exposed. Like, it's going to be really hard to hide this stuff, so it'll be easier to catch when it happens. But when we get to the end of the month, it's not going to be so simple to spot. So this is a good time to practice vigilance. Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, midheaven, and also, again, huge structural changes. So where governments are concerned, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, where governments are concerned globally, we should see some major shifting of power, and some really strong penalties, and bringing the hammer down, and tipping point. This is a full moon. It is a tipping point. And people are saying enough is enough. So, what is it? The Iron Curtain falls. Or the iron bars, I suppose it is. So that's what we got going on. So it will be interesting. It will be interesting. You guys are going to be okay. We've got a lot of important positive things that are happening here that are not so obvious when you're standing in the middle of a maelstrom, or, the middle of a tornado. But you have to have faith. Well, you don't have to, but it'll help your mental health if you have faith. And also believe, like I absolutely believe, looking at these aspects, that we're going to be okay. There's very, very important things happening right now, and we are being guided, guarded, and protected by our ancestors and the spirits and the divine universe and all the things that want us to be okay and survive this and evolve, right? And leave behind a much better world for our children. So I believe that that's what's happening, but it may be a little difficult to see. And also, just so before I finish this video, just one thing I wanted to mention. Did you guys see where they were talking about aliens? Right? So apparently the Air Force or the Navy spotted a UFO, or spotted activity that they cannot explain. They literally have zero explanation for us, and because it defied all laws of gravity and engineering and anything else that they could think of that would make sense. They got no explanation for it, and it was light patterns that we're watching. That, wow, yeah, they're here. So I don't know if it's the aliens coming to help us out here. Maybe they could just as easily be coming here to eat us. Like, which is a big old harvesting plant. I know, happy thought, right? But I thought that was pretty interesting. And apparently out in Oregon, Portland, like way out west, bulls, cattle have been found completely drained of blood with organs, specific organs, completely surgically, precisely removed, and not a drop of blood anywhere near the animal. So there's no explanation how this animal was bled dry and organs removed, and there's no blood anywhere. Like, it's like the animal just appeared out of nowhere in this condition, which is pretty frightening. So there's a lot of talk out there right now about aliens. Yeah, it's a fun time we're living in. All right, so I know you're watching me, the screen bouncing around here. So here, down here in the bottom, is what they call a 90-degree dial, although this is 30. So this particular clustering, we've got the Moon, Jupiter, Pluto, midheaven. Like I was saying, Saturn is not in this picture. However, the Sun is. So this full moon with Jupiter and Pluto and the midheaven are all clustered together in the skies under this full moon. So I would absolutely look for huge, larger than life, like unbelievably larger than life events to happen. Once in a lifetime things, like maybe aliens showing up on the White House lawn. And some serious opportunities to make history. Once in a lifetime, make history sort of stuff. So, let's see what we've got here. Yeah. This is big stuff. This full moon is very, very important. Very important. So it will be interesting to see what comes of it. Okay. All right, so we're not going to use any of this. Yeah, see, the thing with astrology is you could be here literally all day and just how thin can you slice an onion is pretty much what astrology is. And at the end of the day, it's not about memorizing cookbook pieces of information. It's about being able to synthesize it, right? There's a lot of, it looks intuitive, but the reality is there's a lot of deep understanding that goes into really being able to look at a chart and get information. And some of it doesn't really have words or explanations. There's just a depth of understanding that you develop over time that you make connections and then it's there. So I'll give you a little story and then we're definitely closing up shop for the evening. I was talking to two people who shall go unnamed, and they had just recently started a relationship. So I was looking at their charts, and I only know them superficially. I don't really know them that well, and certainly not enough to speculate about their personal lives, although their chart says a lot. Chart says a lot. Okay. So during the conversation, we were talking about something, and I was saying, like, looking at this chart, and I'm like, well, the man in the relationship would benefit tremendously from things that involve role play, right? And some ability to explore other parts of himself and literally become a different person. Like there's that. And also it was all over the chart. This guy had serious mother issues. And listen, not all mommy or daddy issues are bad issues. We've all got mother and father issues. Don't you kid yourself. And if you don't, it's because you were raised by wolves. It's just that how we work those things out is a completely different thing. And I really take issue with these parasites that are like, oh, she's got daddy issues. Who's your daddy? Ugh. Dude, that's just creepy in a really bad way. Anyway, sorry. So he's definitely got some issues with women and his mother that he's working through in this lifetime. Okay, so no big deal. And yeah, the whole thing with like role play and theater and drama and like having a stage to perform and kind of get out of his head and be someone else came up really prominently when I was doing this thing. And all I remember is that about halfway through this conversation, he looked horrified and she started cackling like a crazy person. And I had no idea what was happening, right? It's like, okay, anytime anybody'd like to share that information with me, I'd like to be in on the joke too. So finally, she says to me, how did you know that? How did you know that? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, oh my God, how did you know that? I still don't know what you're talking about. Well, ladies and gentlemen, come to find out, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I'm saying this because this is the kind of stuff that happens when you have a depth of understanding in something. There are things that you're going to get that you can't assign to like little checklists, right? So as it turns out, since meeting her, because she's very open-minded and very expressive, and a few other things based on our chart. Anyway, it turns out they had been exploring cross-dressing. So he and his late stages of life, after entering this relationship with a very open-minded young woman, discovered that he was a cross-dresser and enjoyed it immensely, and it was doing good things for his head. So I don't know if that had anything to do with some other issues, and they're not necessarily the same thing, just so you guys know. But certainly it fit all of the pictures that I was seeing that had to do with creative self-expression and role play and this, theater and being someone else kind of thing, all that sort of stuff, which is pretty interesting. Yeah. So astrology is not memorizing a bunch of cookbook interpretations. Pluto means this, and Pluto in this sign means that, and Pluto in this, in this sign in this house means this. Like, these are all really gross oversimplifications. Ultimately, what we're looking at are patterns, right? And we're looking for the bigger patterns, and we're looking for possible ways that this can play itself out. So be very, very mindful of how you use your astrology when you're talking to other people, especially if you're trying to dissect their chart. Be very gentle, be very confidence-inspiring, and for the love of God, do not think for a minute you're qualified to be a therapist, because you're not, and neither am I. And whatever this person is dealing with, they should be dealing with a professional, because this is not going to be solved by looking at an astrology chart. And I guess I'm saying that because we're heading into some really challenging full moon stuff. Okay. All right. So just for grins and giggles, some other things that are going on under this full moon. We've got Sirius, the asteroid Sirius with Jupiter in Sagittarius. So food, motherhood, women, reproductive rights, all of these things are going to be front and center. But we should also get a saving grace on this. So if this has been a battle in your country where women's rights and protecting women's rights have been an issue, we should get a stay of execution, or some type of 11th hour saving grace in this. So, I know we need it here in the U.S. Good God, we're literally under a Christian jihad right now. Oh my God. Okay, so there's that. What else do we have going on here? We have Zeus, Kronos. That's Kronos. We have Kronos with a north node. So there is, and again, these are women's issues because it's Cancer, right? Oh, you know what? That's the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court should be coming up, because Grand Trine with Mercury and Scorpio, Neptune and Pisces. So here in the U.S., something with the Supreme Court, I guess in Britain, it would be the Parliament, the higher courts, the highest judicial systems in your land should be coming up full front and center under this full moon. Now, it is a grand trine, which is extremely protective. So we should be seeing something positive and protective coming out of this that is going to help us evolve forward, because Kronos and the North Node is involved with a grand trine with Mercury and Neptune, and they're in water signs, feminine signs. Now, Pallas Athene, the asteroid, is also near Mercury. Poseidon is conjunct Mercury exact. So this grand trine in water that we just talked about with Kronos in the North Node and the highest courts in the land for wherever you're at, we're also looking at Poseidon and Mercury together. This is very promising. I have to say this is very promising because Neptune is very much about higher consciousness, right? The Christ consciousness or the Allah consciousness, whatever the Buddha consciousness, whatever it is for you and your faith. But it's very much about higher consciousness and transcendent knowledge and things that are very much about lasting in eternity and also universal love and compassion. Ooh, this is good stuff. So this grand trine is very protective. So we should see something really, really good coming out of this. So the most vulnerable people and the most vulnerable women who are at a disadvantage may find their champion at this time. Yay, yay! I'm all about it. All about it. What else we got going on? The sun with Zeus? That's Zeus. Kronos, Zeus. That's Zeus. So the sun with Zeus? Ooh. So the sun the sun with Zeus as part of this full moon and involving Pluto in part of the T-square, we could, I'm not so thrilled with this. We could easily see something blowing up, whether it's volcanoes erupting or missiles being launched or declarations of war. And now I'm scaring myself. So we're going to hope that this is not what it is. Or simply firecrackers exploding kind of thing. Arms, ammunition, explosions, great eruptions. These are the things we can expect to see under this T-square for this full moon. So do be aware, and please, please, please be very aware of your surroundings. That's almost guaranteed. Almost guaranteed. Yikes. Yikes. Okay. And what else do we got here? Chiron is in Aries, which I don't know. Some people make a big deal out of Chiron. I'm not finding that it does a lot. It just doesn't, honey, it just doesn't excite me. Chiron doesn't really excite me unless it's making a very close aspect to something. And I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. So there's that. Oh, and Venus and Apollon are together. They're not quite exact. But they're close, right? So Sun, Zeus, Mercury, Poseidon are exact. Kronos, North Node, exact. Those are the ones I would watch. Kronos, Zeus, and Poseidon. Apollon and Venus are close, but Apollon is not there yet. So one of the things that I would look for, especially in Scorpio, when Apollon gets closer to Venus, market issues, the economy, global economy, and trade, especially fair trade and foreign trade between countries, is definitely going to be up there on the table for discussion, because it will also involve Uranus at the time. It's close now, but it's not exact. It will also involve Uranus, which means there could be breaks in trade agreements, like literally severances of relationships, which are all part of power plays, and long-term gains. So this would be literally the divorce, because the alimony you're going to get paid makes a lot more sense than staying married to the person. Ugh. Whew. Fun times. Okay. So that is it. That is it. I've gotten it out of my system. And so that is our full moon report for October 13th, 2019. Put your comments below. If you like this, please like, subscribe, and share. Because I'm not completely sure what's going on with the YouTube algorithms, but I'm kind of floundering here. So I may or may not keep this channel up much longer, because I'm just not getting a lot back for the effort. And I love doing this, but I got to focus on things that are making life move forward. So if you know people who might be interested, absolutely send along. If you have comments or suggestions or questions, please put them in the comments below. I love talking to you guys. And that's it. So until we get past this full moon and out of the month, we'll just keep rocking and rolling like we're doing. And that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.